businesswoman who had been on the internet for a few months now. This woman alleged that the former governor of Ebonyi State and Minister of Works and Housing allegedly is owing her the sum of 250 million naira. This woman was said to have been arrested in Lagos and brought to Abuja. This woman was said to have been detained and humiliated. She was said to have been released on bail after an outcry by the public. Again, look at another scenario. It's a story of a young journalist who published a story about a big CEO that this said CEO was involved in about 15 million naira debt with his client. This said journalist, Sadiq Atonda, was also arrested and detained until after public outcry before this said journalist was released. There are a whole lot of stories about recent detention, harassment, and intimidation by police of individuals, by very strong personalities within our society. Now, the question is, Cybercrime Act 2015, is it a safeguard or a tool of intimidation? These are the issues we're going to be looking at in details. Before we go in depth into the topic of today, let me give you a little roundup about the happenings around Consumer Watch. You recall the recent incident, the recent war between Iraq and US, Iran and US, that has, of course, driven the petroleum pump price to above 1,000 naira. And this has affected the price of consumables around the country. And so, in this table, we need to look at how the pump price of petroleum price, how it affects means of production, how it affects transportation and logistics, how it affects food inflation and increased cost of manufacturing in the country. And so, as a Consumer Watch expert, it's important that we keep our eye on this. We continue to also, in our little corner, maybe perhaps pray that the war between Iran and US soon ease off, so that the of consumables will ease off and the cost of production will not so much affect Nigerians. You recall also last year we brought you a program, we brought you a topic where we discussed the high cost of airline in Nigeria, and particularly we noted that when it gets to the festive period, that the airline seems to come to a kind of illusion to fixed price. We are happy that CCPC is investigating those complaints and looking at how culpable airlines can be sanctioned. So most times when the period begin to get closer, you notice that the prices of air tickets just surge upward. And the question is, what is the reason? It's not that the jet fuel, it's not as if the jet fuel increases. Nothing in terms of cost of production increase, but suddenly you just notice that this airfare begin to increase astronomically. So these are issues we'll continue to keep our eyes upon and continue to look at and see how it affects the general consumers. Thirdly, also is that SERAP has called for probe of tech algorithm and big tech algorithm like Meta, like Facebook, like Instagram. And this also calls for a lot of investigation, because SERAP is saying that these big tech are involved in what we call abuse of dominance. Abuse of dominance, where they just come together and they just manipulate the internet and begin to manipulate the feeds that come through Nigerians' internet system. To an ordinary Nigerians, this might sound a little strange. It's something that Nigerians are not really used to. But the truth is that your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, when you open it and you begin to flip through, there are algorithms that determine what comes on your Facebook, right? There are algorithms that determine what plays out. There are algorithms that determine what fits on your Facebook. And so somebody is at the back end that is tracking this. Somebody is at the back end that is determining what Nigerians got. And SERAP is beginning to call on the relevant government agency to look in that direction and see who is responsible for these wrong feeds, or who is responsible for manipulation of these feeds. And so these are the areas that we are bringing to your attention on Consumer Watch this afternoon. The Cybercrime Act 2015 was passed in that 2015, and basically the act is to fight against, at that time, what is commonly known as the Yahoo boys, the hackers, the romance scammers, and identity theft or identity thieves, etc. Section 24 of that act specifically talks about cyber stalking. This section 24 was amended in the year 2024. Then there were issues that were now brought into this act. And of course, powerful politicians and powerful businessmen now begin to use it, including government agencies. They now see this as a personal weapon. All they need to do is to write a simple petition to the police and allege cyberbullying, cyber stalking, or false publication. And there you go. The individuals that it's alleged in that petition will of course be arrested and sometimes taken to police station, in most cases different from the jurisdiction where they are arrested. And also in most times, these gentlemen are most times not granted bail, or they will be granted bail after several outcry. The case at hand, of course, which is very popular now, is the case of Tracy Nicholas Ohiri, and the case we mentioned earlier, Sadiq Atonda, a journalist who was just minding his business, doing his work. But of course, in the course of his work, he was arrested. Of course, also there have been several calls that, including lawyers, influencers, are now victims of that act. So what does it do to us as Nigerians? What it means is that citizens cannot speak freely about bad products. Citizens cannot speak freely about bad governance. You cannot even ask for your debt. Somebody is owing you, you can't demand for your debt. That was the case of Tracy, and that was why Tracy was arrested. So what are the outcomes? What have we seen in these outcomes? The outcome, of course, is it creates fear. It creates self-censorship. People deleting posts. Families selling lands to free their children from real, what you call, cybercrime. People begin to suffer from police intimidation. Instead of we using that act, Cybercrime Act, to go after the main culprits, which we know are in the cyberspace, it now becomes an issue that they now use against innocent Nigerians. Again, this afternoon, I have a very fine gentleman in the studio who is not a visitor to this topic. And of course, when you are talking about cybercrime in Nigeria, when you are talking about any issues that has to do with cyber or cybercrime, is an authority. You are welcome, sir. It's good to have you in the studio, sir.
Thank you for having me once again. Thank you.
So the issues are straight. Cybercrime Act 2015 of intimidation, or a safeguard for Nigerians?
Thank you once again for having me. I think, presenter, you're already biased by the way you asked the question, because you cannot say that that our act, that is well researched, where we have, renowned experts that were able to put up the document together as a tool for intimidation. And it's wrong for you to actually say that the police are using the act to intimidate people. The act is there to help victims. The act is there to help Nigerians. The act is there, to ensure that traitors, those threat actors, that those that do things that are in contradiction with our laws are punished. And as you rightly said, we have relevant sections, which if you go against those sections, you will be punished. You're talking about Tracy case, which I'm not too familiar, so I'm not going to dwell on that because it was not handled by my office and I don't know much about that. But if we're talking about Section 24 of the Cybercrime Act, it's well stipulated and very clear. You can imagine, let me ask you a question, Barrister. If you wake up in the morning and you open your social media account and first thing you see is your news or a purported news, how will you feel? What are you going to feel? What do you think?
Dr. Sir, before we get into those nitty-gritty, recent events have suggested that journalists, activists, including lawyers, ordinary citizens, are being targeted. When you raise up your voice against government, when you criticize government, all you need to do is to do a petition against such individual, and the person will find himself in police detention. So is it right that police will begin to make itself available as a tool in the hands of politicians?
That is not correct. If someone is aggrieved by you posting malicious contents that are unfounded, that are not true, and the person have the right to seek for assistance, have the right to approach the court, have the right to write to the police for investigation, and of course that person is also supposed to take laws into his hand. And that's why we'll have the investigators, we'll have the police, and we'll have the courts of competent jurisdictions to take care of that.
Shouldn't
go through? Let me come, Barrister. Check. You're a lawyer. I believe you are so very, very conversant with our laws.
Very well.
You're very conversant with our acts. The Section 24 of the Cybercrime Act states that it deals with cyber stalking. Cyber stalking in states. If you send messages that are grossly offensive, indecent, or cause harm to someone, it's an offense. It's an offense. So it does not matter. Sometimes we push out content without knowing the implication of the things that we push out. You push out contents believing that nothing will happen, that you're aiming. That is still why there's a very big difference between freedom of speech and when you are causing harm. Some of this content cause, at the end of the day, you see victims, the contents are affecting the mental health of individuals. So how do you justify that? How do you justify that? Now, when you push out content that affects, someone's mental health, how do you justify that? So if you're pushing out content, if you have an issue and you want to push out content to out there in the social media, you must be very sure of what you are pushing out. You must be able to defend whatever thing that you've done. And of course, the laws are there to protect victims. If someone is aggrieved, you have the right to write to the police. You have the right to seek redress in court. And without him, for him not to take laws into his hand. And you cannot say that someone that writes to the police, that police should not investigate. But it is right for them to complain to the police.
Sir, my question is, if you feel aggrieved, if an individual feel aggrieved about any action, either online or otherwise, of an individual, shouldn't he approach the court for redress?
If it's criminal in nature, of course you have to approach. That's why I said that for someone that is aggrieved, it's either you approach the police to investigate, to seek for redress, or you approach court of competent jurisdiction. So if it's civil in nature, you approach the court. If it's criminal in nature, you approach the police.
This is
and
where
that is
the
why we have the
this is where the
establishment.
problem is.
You cannot just push out content because you want to push out content that affects mental health of individuals, and you expect the person to keep quiet. How? We have the law. We have laws in this country.
Where does police
We'll
investigation
get
to persecution?
No, that's a very wrong word to use. Take an exception to that. It's
Okay.
a very wrong word to use.
Okay.
There's nothing like persecution. You don't have personal issue with the police. If a case is reported, it's our responsibility, our constitutional mandate to investigate. And that was why they established the Nigerian Police Force. And that's why we'll have
Honorable
investigators.
Commissioner, sir.
So it's our
The
responsibility.
reason why I
to do
use
that.
that word is when you take that individual, it begins to change color, and the individual begin to see himself as a victim of the state, as
Let
a
me tell
victim.
you, all of our
So this is
actions
where
are-
this is where the
all
issues
the actions
are.
are done in tandem with the relevant provisions and laws. I cannot imagine any police officer detain 24 hours. So you have reason to detain more than 24 hours. You have to approach the court and get a remand order from the court, and that authorizes you to keep that person, depending on the number of days, the mandate that you have from the court. So it's not true that you can just go and arrest and detain. It's not possible. You can detain within 24 hours. That is what the law says. We don't walk outside the ambit of the law. It's an Nigerian police is an establishment of the law. So we walk within the ambit of the law. So whatever thing that we are being guided with the relevant sections and provisions of our act and our laws. So if a case is reported, it's our responsibility to make sure that we investigate and to prosecute that case. So if someone is detained because of an offense that he committed, I don't think we've done anything wrong. If someone is detained with the order of the court, I don't think we've done anything wrong. So, and if someone is aggrieved, you say, why writing petition? That is your word. That person is supposed to write petitions and report to the police. Do you want the person to go and report to thugs?
The police has turned itself to a debt recovery agency.
That is not true.
Is there
That is not
my
true.
question, sir?
If you are
my question,
involved
sir.
in fraud,
My
if
question: are there internal mechanisms
yes,
that the police has put in place to check some of these excesses? Because, sir, it is true that I know you are a perfect gentleman, and I mean most of the police services or police activity here in Abuja who seems to be in order, but when you cascade go down the areas that looks like not very well covered, even in Abuja, some of the places that are not in the urban centers, some of these things take place like in blazant broad daylight.
no, it's not true. It's not true. As I said, there is no policeman that will do anything wrong. You know, that is not being guided, that cannot be guided by the relevant laws. So if you're talking about fraud, if you have a business or something, you know, and something to do with funds, and you decided to defraud the person has the right to approach the police for investigation and of course for the recovery. So, but you know, when things happen, the way we paint it, you make your statement, whatever you want, the way it's going to fit you. But if it's being interpreted, you know, if we have, you know, if it's being sent to court, you're being investigated, you're being interrogated, and at the end of the day, you will get out the main facts of the case. Of course, if it's such a constitutional offense, you prosecute the person, you charge the person to court. But don't forget that there are cases that will refuse several at the end of the day.
Say it again, sir.
There are cases that if you look at it, the content, and you see that it does not merit, you will refuse it. We do it.
Are there circumstances that you have refused?
It's either you refuse, then advise the parties. We'll do it. And we'll ask the person to go for civil litigation. We'll ask the person to go and file a civil suit. We'll do it. But you know, most times, those good jobs are not seen.
Often at times,
Those good jobs are not seen.
Often at
It's
times,
only when
you see this from the elitist point of view. You
This
saw a
happens-
policeman
This
that
happens down to police station level.
Dr. Uche, sir, we saw
Yes.
a policeman that was trending not too long ago on Badagry Expressway, where he was accosted by two foreign tourists. The tourist told the policeman that we are tourists. The policeman said, "You are agriculture men. You have come here for agriculture." So when you look at these issues, in this angle, it looks very correct that no policeman would do that. But you notice that there are also very many ignorant policemen out there who don't even have an idea about what you are talking about.
No, you see, this a disciplined organization, and what I mean by that is that we do everything in tandem with the law.
Yeah, don't do
And
police.
of course, no, of course, you are aware that there are a lot of programs where we train and retrain our police officers. So you cannot say that they are ignorant. They are not ignorant because they know what they are doing. There have been constant training, there have constant retraining. The Inspector General is doing a lot. The members of the force are fighting so hard, to work with our relevant laws.
What exactly should an individual do when he found himself being cyberstalked?
That's a very good question. If you find yourself being cyberstalked,
Yeah.
write to the Inspector General of Police or walk to our office. We have our e-reporting portal. I shared it with you last time. Write to us. We investigate. If it's such that constitutes an offense, we will get the person arrested and we'll charge the person to court, no matter who that person is. So it's the only way is for you to seek redress. Contacting the police to help you. You cannot take laws into your hands. Politicians are citizens of this country. So if their rights are being infringed upon, if there are cases, if there are things that is not done rightly against them, they have the right, just like you and every other citizen of this country, to equally approach the court and to equally approach the police for help. Everybody, all the citizens of Nigeria. That's why I said that politicians are equally citizens of this country and they have rights. Yes.
Small businesses, particularly of people who are not politicians, would they survive in this regime? Because most of the time, like I said earlier, it looks as if that very section 24 is meant only for politicians and powerful Nigerians. Can small businesses survive in the light of this?
Cases over 99 or let me say 98 or 97% of cases involving cybercrime, cyber stalking and cyberbullying that we've handled at the set are not from politicians.
Have you seen?
I can tell you clearly, they're not from politicians.
Wow.
We have individuals, businessmen, businesswomen, civil servants, public servants that have approached us and we've been able to help in cases of cyber stalking, in cases of cyberbullying. I asked you one question. If you wake up in the morning, you pick up your social media account, and first thing you're seeing is probably a deep fake image, purportedly to be you, with showing your nudes, your sensitive parts.
I will sue the jet.
You will see. What is that thing called? That is cyber stalking. That is cyberbullying. Do you understand me? So you have to seek redress. So if someone wakes up and says, this Barrister Festus is a thief, is a criminal, is this and that, without having pure justification for that, you just keep quiet because you want to be a good Nigerian. You won't approach the court, you won't approach the police to help you. So that is why we have the Act. The Act is there to protect the victims. The Act is there to help, those that their rights are being trampled upon.
Have you noticed anything? Have you noticed anything in this law that you think deserve to be altered or worked on?
In the world, there is no perfect law. There is no perfect document. Okay, and you see, that's why you have reviews upon reviews upon reviews. So of course, I know that if there are things that are not working out well with our laws, of course, that is why we have those that have a responsibility to amend the laws. So that's why I have constant reviews. Don't forget, Cybercrime Act.
So what would be your recommendation?
From 2015, 2024, and it's still.
What would be your recommendation? What aspect would you be recommending to be reviewed?
Well, for now, what we have is still working for us. So is as we progress, if there are things that are identified, we'll channel it through the appropriate channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to this issue of abuses again. And in the event that the individuals, take for example the notorious case that is all over, the case of Tracy O'Hiri. In the event that police find that actually that the minister is owing this woman. What will police do, at least in recovery of her own debt, which the minister is owing? Because in this case, while the woman that was arrested is being accused of cyberbullying and cyber stalking and all that, she's also accusing the minister of owing her some money.
Well, as I said earlier when we started this, I'm not too familiar, with this case. But then, if she feels aggrieved, she has the right to approach the court or to write petition against whosoever that she's having dealing with. That's her right. She can equally write petition to the police. She can equally approach the court of competent jurisdiction to seek for redress. So she's a citizen. She has the right to do that.
Remember that we've been having in the studio with me is Dr. Uche Ifeanyi Henry, is the Commissioner of Police in charge of National Cybercrime Center in Abuja here. And in the course of our engagement, the police are also trying to be as transparent as possible. They're also trying to let you know that they are not just there for the wealthy, powerful people and the politician alone. They are for ordinary Nigerians, me and you. And the reason why we are bringing issue of police service here is that police should render service. Police render services just like your telecommunication company will render service, just like your DSTV, all the people who are involved in other sectors will render service. That's the same way we should begin to perceive police as an institution that renders service. And so I quickly read out some of the police handle that you can reach them on in case you have any query. On Twitter, they are at MPF_NCCC. On Twitter, which is on X, they are at MPF_NCCC. At Instagram, they are at MPF/NCCC. On Facebook, they are Nigerian Police Force National Crime Center. So you can find them on Facebook by that name. Then the website to reach them is NCCC, that is National Cybercrime Center .mpf.gov.ng at /e-report/signing, of course. Why didn't the police investigate the other aspect that she alleged that she's being owed? So give us your response and also just tell us any message you have for Nigerians.
If you cannot just investigate one aspect, you have to find out whatever thing that transpired, in that particular case. I believe that will be done because they are professionals in their field. And I believe at the end of the day, well, if she is not found culpable, she will go free. Of course, she can equally take a civil redress in the court, as I said earlier.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Commissioner. It's been a pleasure having you again. It's always a pleasure. I mean, in spite of the short notice, you are here. Dear listeners, again, it's your program, Consumer Watch, and our position here is that cybercrime and police service should in itself be for services. It should not be, police should not see themselves as a force where they will begin to force people or begin to intimidate people like the colonial era. Police should see themselves as an institution that renders service. Thank you very much. It's your program, Consumer Watch. See you again next week. I am Barrister Festus Onifade. Thank you.